And here we are, friends. Today, this is sort of our second live stream, but we're talking about the American Village. And our main topic, which you can comment about in the chat on Tim Kirby Russia Hardcore, or you can call in and talk about, is going to be, why is this taking so long? I think that is an extremely fair question that I've been getting from people, because I really expected a lot more to have happened over the summer. But the reason that things aren't going well is pretty simple. We have now transitioned over from sort of maybe... Again, because when you're trying to do something you've never done before, there's some surprises. And we kind of gone through this whole path of trying to get support, trying to convince, the government bureaucracy, the people actually want to move here, that we should actually be allowed to do such a project. We should actually be allowed to take this farmland and change it into this weird village for English-speaking foreigners, this, that, and the other. Like, all that stuff's accomplished. But now we face the hurdle of building the village. And one of the things is the deal with how we can acquire the land presents a bit of a paradox. A few people have said, and this is initially what I wanted to do with the project, is just sort of have the open field, man. Whoever comes and starts building, that's awesome, and that'll be eclectic, and everyone could have like their own individual house, or just build it themselves. But unfortunately, when you get into like zoning laws and registration, the establishing a permanent address, which is something you have to do to get temporary residency or permanent residency and beyond. You can't really do it that way. And so we kind of had to draw up a real plan for the village, and we kind of have to stick to that plan in the government's eyes. And what does that mean? That means two things. It means one thing that has two major aspects. We have been, over the last, say, month and a half, so from the middle of summer to this point, it's now, the end of the first week of September, we've been looking for investors. Russian, for the most part, investors, maybe some foreign investors, or I should say, probably say donors, who would be willing to invest into what is essentially, and again, I have to make this clear because everyone gets it wrong, which winds up being a private sector endeavor, ultimately. Just like in America, if you were to say want to build a new McMansion street somewhere around Cleveland, where I'm from, you would still need a lot of interaction with the government for all the permits and being allowed to do this, and you'd still have to follow all the building codes. So it's basically just like if you wanted to build your McMansion fantasy land somewhere on the territory of the United States that wound up kind of being more like a gated community. Same thing. There's no way to do this without some presence of the government, but always because it's Russia. If there's anything that even slightly touches the government, that means it's Putin's job, or Putin's will that this is happening, which is kind of frustrating because, again, this is the will of a very small group of people who really believe in this project. Maybe one good thing I should say, and I'm going to have him come on the program, is apparently someone's gotten over these hurdles, and somehow I believe Father Joseph, way up north, was able to buy a very large plot of land, and I think that they're going to help him deal with that land, and he found a really good construction company. Basically, he was able to sort of achieve what I've failed to do. So, if you really want to come to Russia, now's the time to talk to Father Joseph. But he's way up north. Be forewarned, minimum 5-hour drive to Moscow. So, if you need the delights of the big city, you're going to have to deal with a long trip. However, it's still fairly accessible. You'd be surprised how fast 5 hours can go, especially if you're asleep. So that's actually huge good news. That is amazing news, and I'm kind of a little mentally out of it. I should have had Father Joseph come on like today. Maybe if I'll be at home tomorrow, I'll try to talk to him. But I definitely need to be able to actually have him come on and him tell about what's happening up there rather than me relaying information badly. But anyways, back to our topic. The southern, again, we sort of had 2 American villages. We went back down to 1. We had a couple prospective ones. Now we're back to 2. So anyways, the southern village, which applies to me, around Serpukhov, our main problem is that we can't find an investor. We can't find someone who's willing to even put money down. The most very, very super minimum tiny investment would be just someone who could at the very least cover the costs of the rezoning and the subdivision of the land and the installing the transformer. You know, like the thing that basically you take electricity from the big wires, and it's the thing that puts them into the more little wires that go to your houses. That thing, the big metal box. They're not actually crazy expensive. And I think all in all, this comes out into the range of like 2 to 3 million rubles. But I don't have that. If you're wondering how much that's worth, and if you're going to be living in Russia, get used to doing a lot of Google searches about it. So go search right now. Google will give you a pretty decent answer most of the time. So that's kind of the first thing. There's this first barrier of sort of in order for us to really build something, we kind of have to like have the land really ready to go. But a lot of these investors are kind of like, but the land isn't ready. Why isn't the land ready? Why isn't everything perfectly ready and it's like a little pretty bow? I want everything to be perfect and for there to be no questions. And I'm going to put in X amount of money and get 100%, 150% of that value back within 2 years or something. That's, or less, I would say. A real Russian investor wants it back in 6 months, but that's a fantasy land for the speed of this project. So essentially, we're really stuck on this first barrier, this sort of paradox of not having the money to get everything ready to build on it. Because even if if by some miracle, some rich guy came forward and was like, Tim, just take 2 million rubles. Don't even pay me back. Don't even worry about it. At that point, I could go to the government and be like, yo, government, boom, here, we're going to do this. They're going to rezone it. They're going to subdivide it. And then to an extent, we actually could sort of do a thing where it's like, as long as we follow the plan of how everything has to be that the government got, people actually could just kind of maybe come and start to like even build their own home with their own 2 hands or whatever. That would be kind of possible. But as it stands today, it's impossible. And I'm someone that tends to financially go with safer bets. And the fact that I bought an apartment for the future of my kids, I've talked about this before on the program, so I won't get too much into it, but it really solved a lot of problems and guarantees that I'm going to have a much higher Social Security. So I can't really say that I regret it, but it means I'm paying off a mortgage, which means no one is going to give me a loan. Because 2 million rubles really isn't that much money in terms of like, you know, the greater scope of things, but I can't take out another loan. In Russia, they don't let you go into debt. So I can't take out a loan myself, so I'm kind of at a loss. We definitely have some more meetings with more potential investors, and a few of them are more the type of people who are kind of actually excited about this project on some social level. So even if one of them is able to sort of like, you know, be like, okay, I understand it's a sort of weird thing where it's a sort of like ideological project, but it's also kind of commercial. And I understand that, yeah, I'll be able to make money off it, but it's not going to be a crazy amount. Like, you know, if someone can sort of like put all those factors together, maybe we can find someone to do that. What would be even better would be for someone to pay a much larger amount of money that I won't mention to at least get the first street started. That would really also be huge. So we at least get the initial residents there. We get the initial street going. You know, we get all this sort of initial stuff going. And especially because when you're an investor and I go, hey, we've got this social project, give me 2 million rubles to get the land in order to do something later. This guy's like, okay, I give you a couple million. Where would I get the money back from? He can't get it back. Whereas if we build the first street, oh, see, that's where someone could get it back from. And I think either someone is listening to me from some evil organization or my speakers are going nuts. So why is that happening? Anyways, speakers are dead. You people at the evil organization, stop listening to me. I don't like this. Don't like it at all. But anyways, so that's kind of what's happened with the American Village. It is now in this chase to do something that I'm very bad at, which is essentially sales. You know, you're trying to sell an idea, and I'm a very good spokesman in terms of speaking and all that stuff. But when it comes to some sort of like sales strategies and all that stuff, like that is really not my thing. I am the least salesy human being you've probably ever met. To do sales, you really have to love the negotiation, the art of the deal, as Trump said, and really be this sort of people person. And you know, I'm a strange man who lives in the woods. So, Yeah. So that's what's happening with the project. So don't worry, the project is certainly not dead. In fact, Father Joseph's project is very much rejuvenated. It is alive, and he is so close to the start. He might even be already at the start date. I don't know. We'll have him on the program. But with the American Village around Sierpukhov, we are just sort of stuck in the limbo of needing an investor and not quite being able to get anyone to bite. But the thing is, again, there is hope, because to build the entire, dacha community, which is essentially like a small town, obviously that is a lot of money to invest. To build like the first street that's going to have maybe like 10 houses on it, yeah, that's a lot of money. But, it's not that much money. And as I mentioned on the channel, it is true that the amount of dollar millionaires and dollar billionaires in Russia has vastly increased since the beginning of the war. So I'm sure we can find someone who would be interested in doing this, but it's just a kind of complex situation. And again, we're kind of stuck in what they call catch-22. It's like, in order to really start building and really make the investors happy, we kind of have to have the whole land thing worked out. But to have the whole land thing worked out, I need money from an investor or someone who's just rich and would love to just give it away. But, the fastest way to stop being rich is to give away $2 million or 2 million rubles to every project that seems pleasant to you, So there you go, guys. That is sort of the truth behind the American Village. I'm going to turn my speakers back on, even though demonic voices might be listening to me, and Sam is going to come on the program. Hi, Sam. I guess you had something to say there.
Yeah, Tim. So you're looking for an angel investor?
Possibly. There are certain things where, again, because people, whenever I say something about this project, I feel like I speak very clearly, but people love to grab on the one thing like real tight. And so I don't want to say I'm seeking an angel investor specifically, because then that'll exclude everyone else. That is a possibility. But also having a more normal, traditional investor is also a possibility.
Yeah. I would say my wife and I, we would be interested in coming and building a home and then maybe selling it and build another one and just kind of be builders there during the summer and help you that way. I've built 4 homes and
so well, here one thing is, are you asking? Excuse me, 1 second here. Are you asking for like is something related to the American Village or something for yourself?
Well, it's for myself to begin with, but that would be a good motivation, is if people could come and build a home, live in one, work on another one, and then kind of help in that way. Then we'd make a little bit of money there as well.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I can tell you one thing. So again, Sam, I'm going to mute you, not because you're a bad person, but we're getting a lot of weird background noises. Not a problem. Not a problem. Not saying it's a problem. That's why there's the mute button. But anyways, I actually met an American guy here, and to respect his privacy, I won't go too deep into it, but he was born in America, but his mom is Russian, so I believe his Russian is a native language too. And so, oh boy, why is there feedback? If you'll have to excuse me, guys, I'm going to close my entire web browser, because there is like feedback coming from something. What is going on here? Why is everything so noisy? I think that was it. I think there must have been some video or something playing in the background. Anyways, so I met a guy who I assume he has native Russian and English. Well, his English is, of course, perfect. So anyways, he does that. He buys a plot of land. He builds the house ultimately himself. And then he sells it. But one of the main things that he even said is that in Russia, if you're going to do something like that, you got to make sure that it's either around Moscow or St. Petersburg. Because those are the places that have the real high demand, and build it however you see fit and sell it. He said anything to do with customization becomes a nightmare. You build the house, you finish it, you sell it, and you sell it as is. So if you're going to do that, heed his advice. I think he knows what he's doing. That is definitely something you can do. But again, one of these things is like with that guy who literally he can build a house 100 like a house with all the electricity, all the plumbing done right by himself. And that's what you have to do, because when you start to get into trying to get to like contract this out to people, again, you get into the whole thing of it's really hard to find good work. good workers when it comes to this sort of thing. So if you're going to try to like shop this out to somebody, it's going to fail. If you can do it all yourself, and then maybe, maybe you start to build a life here, and you get like one or two people around you can trust, and you're like the job foreman, and they're like your laborers there. Then yeah, maybe you could form a team around yourself. But if I were you, I would absolutely not try to do this from the standpoint of being like a businessman who's like, I'm going to buy that piece of land and I'm going to hire this crew of guys to build a house on it. It is going to ruin your life and your finances. If you are if you were a job foreman or something in the United States, you can surely get the job done here. Because on the one hand, yeah, you don't speak the language and things here are different. But at the same time, because the standards are so low compared to the United States and there's so few of them, yeah, you can get away with anything. So that's what I would tell you. So, Sam, was that a good answer or was that a terrible answer?
Yeah, that was a good answer. That's what I was thinking too. Just build a very simple thing,
Mm-hmm.
structure, and live in one, buy the next property, and then build the next one, and
Yeah.
just do that for a little while. Maybe that would be helpful if you could find a crew of builders
Well, yeah.
like that
Well, what I
that
can
would
do is
want to come from the.
is about a crew of builders. Yeah, I know people, but again, here we go into. Is there anyone I know where I'm gonna trust them with essentially your life? No. Do I know people who are gonna do a decent by Russian standards job? And yeah, but I don't know anyone that I would really put your life like put your life down as a chip and be like, I certainly, oh yeah, they're gonna do everything the right way, everything's gonna be perfect, it's gonna be bang bang wham bam boom, and everything's gonna be super. It's not, because generally one of the problems too with Russian culture is that Russians who are more like in construction that really want to do a good job, like they're really perfectionist about it, and they really want to do good construction. They only build things that are ridiculously overbuilt and expensive. Like they're not gonna,
Gotcha.
you know what I mean? Like if you want to make money, you have to have build something cheap that someone will want to buy for high. Which is why that other American guy, when he builds homes, they're all stick frame because it's still the cheapest thing you can build in Russia. So he does only stick frame because it's just so much more, and also because you can do it yourself.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
that's what I would.
yeah. So if you also then again, what is Sam? How about this? What if you were to oversee the process of building your own house, but you wanted helpers? So you're not contracting them out. You just want some guys who are around you, and you're their boss. How would you feel about that?
Yeah, that's exactly how I do it here.
Then I can help you with that for sure.
Yeah. Okay. Another question, Tim. I've been listening to Kevin, the Italian guy's last. I'm sorry, I can't pronounce his last
Michelezzi,
name. Yeah, the
I
guy in
yeah
Crimea. I was
yeah.
listening to his channel, and anyway, you guys are both great. I respect you both, so I'm not trying to, like
Hey, if you
create
got criticism, throw it
tension
out,
or
man. I
anything.
don't
But
care.
well, okay. It's not criticism. It's just he told me that I need to be married for 3 years minimum, then come pass the quota, get temporary residency, wait 8 months, get permanent. But you said I could just come and I become. Maybe I
Married to a Russian
misunderstood you. You
citizen.
said yes. I'm married to a Russian citizen
Oh
currently.
yeah, then you could apply for temporary residency the day after getting married. I've never heard of that 3 year thing. Again, remember the laws
Okay.
change, but the laws
Yeah.
change, and one thing is I am not very good at sort of adapting. I'm kind of stuck a little bit in the mode I was in the past, but I've never heard of that before. I am pretty sure the day after you get married, you can go apply.
Okay. All right. So I'll have to just look into it because I'm getting two different. But see, Kevin did say that region by region things are a little different.
That is
He
correct,
says
even though
my
they shouldn't be. They shouldn't be
yeah.
because they're federal
So
laws, but they are. Yeah.
gotcha. Yeah. So
Oh,
my
one thing
other
I'll tell you.
thought.
One thing is, don't try. What's that called? Krasnodarsky Krai and Sevastopol. Don't.
Oh,
They're the worst places to try to immigrate. The system is so rigged against you. You'll ruin your life. Just don't.
Well, that's yeah, because he's in Crimea, so I'm guessing that's why it's so difficult. There's so many hoops to jump through. Because we were gung ho, and then we got an email from him, and we're like, okay,
Well, you
well,
also
might take
remember
a
the
little longer.
Crimea is two states. Sevastopol is actually a separate state, and it is
Okay,
no way. I'm not sure about the Crimea as a whole, because the rest of it is more the whole like wine and tourist world, whereas the Sevastopol sort of I don't know what is it officially called, like it's like what Washington D.C. is. It's like a city that's its own state, kind of. So Sevastopol is its like own unique entity, but it's a military entity. So you have no chances there. Not anymore.
gotcha. Now, what about the Novorossiya area that is the former Ukraine? Are those going to be open for quotas, and are they looking for migrants or
Well, pending that
immigrants?
God allows us to continue to exist on this planet through the end of this war, and there becomes a period of peace, then like every region of Russia, they're going to have because Russia, although it has federal migration laws, the migration process is enacted on a state level, and they're new states, so eventually they're going to have some sort of well, I'm sure they have it now because all the local residents had to get Russian citizenship, but they have to have some sort of migration offices of some sort. But it's the middle of a war. Later, when this is over, yeah, they'll have the same government structures that every other state in Russia does.
Got it. So, if my wife's family is in St. Petersburg, should I just get a private visa to St. Petersburg and try to go through the quota there? Would that be the
Well,
best option?
if you're gonna even mess with this whole quota thing, if you don't get a migration lawyer and don't come up with a plan of how to attack this, you'll lose. Like my buddy Timur Beslangurov, who most of you know, whom you all know. We should use whom because in Russian you have to use whom. Um, he even said that there was one guy who was like American in the Moscow region, so not Moscow the city, but Moscow the outer region, who applied for quota 17 times in a row and failed every time. So you really have to get on this with like some sort of a team of of migration
Got
lawyers,
it.
and get with some sort of plan of action, or because if you just go there, they're just not gonna ever give it to you.
Okay, so how do we get in touch with Timur?
Um, Write me a private message later.
Okay, thanks so much for your help.
Yeah,
God bless
Timur.
you.
But one thing, hold on. Timur doesn't do St. Petersburg, but maybe he knows someone who does. I do know one guy who was in St. Petersburg, but he seems to have vanished off the face of the planet. So I don't know. But again, this is something you have to really systemically sort of attack there. But again, the key thing is what you really need is you have to have all your documents, all these stupid criminal background checks, and your birth certificate, and everything has to have an apostille on it. And if you ever changed your name, you have to have all the documentation about this, that, and the other. You have to have all this stuff. Having like a scan of your college degree is also really useful. Blah 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 blah. Everything down the road. It's a nightmare.
Got it.
All right. So that's another reason why you need an immigration lawyer. Because if you don't have someone who's going to help you get through this nightmare checklist of documents, you're going to show up, you're going to have one thing missing, see the middle finger, and you're going to be in a lot of financial trouble. So,
All
all right,
right.
man. I'll talk to you later.
Thanks.
So that was our friend Sam Oak, who is very often on the program here. And if anyone else wants to talk, you can raise your hand. If not, I'll read your comments. Let's see. Ba-ba-ba. Hell, I've been in Moscow since late 2019, just enjoying life here. We'll work on the rest later, says Bernard. Okay. It kind of depends what legal status you have here. I would really recommend for anyone who's trying to build a life in Russia. Of course, you want to visit Russia, just whatever, visas, whatever, who cares. But if you're trying to build a life in Russia, you must get residency and jump and attack it as fast as you can to get the permanent residency, to get the citizenship, because that solves all of your problems. Okay? So, yeah, it really does. I would never recommend, especially with a system that's as brutal and unforgiving as the Russian system, play the game of like, well, I'll just keep going with visas. My employer gives me visas. They keep giving you visas till one day when your employer stops, you know? The billing department says test wells is to determine the safe and most plentiful supply of water. Okay, that has nothing to do with this. Mr. Martinez, at Tim, can't you borrow from one of several of the better off people on this channel? After all, it's only 20,000 US dollars. That's up to them. But that's up to them. You also have to understand, Mr. Martinez, that there's a certain decorum, and there are certain favors you can ask for, and certain favors that you can just say out into the ether and see if someone voluntarily chooses to consider doing such a thing. This is sort of a question of ethics. Christopher says, yeah, Father Joseph is probably best to live stream so we can all get the bona fide info. Yeah, it would be just dumb because someone the other day was just like, it's not a good story, but long story short, it was like, oh man, I really wanted to talk about your project, but now that I've talked to you about it, I had all the information wrong. Oh no. It's like, well, there you go. So as they say, straight from the horse's mouth. But why do horses have good information? I don't understand. When has a horse ever provided good information to you or to me? I don't know. So anyways, we have very few comments today. Some new faces here listening that I don't normally see. We have an Inessa who I've never seen before. Daniil. The long and the something is here. Well, let's hope that last word in that is a nice word. Hardy is here. Tracy I haven't seen before. Tony. Alex we've talked to before. Watson has stated his opinion many times. Red is new. Leo we've talked to a million times. Sami Ahmed I believe we've talked to once. And Facundo, which is fun. Is Facundo Italian or is it African? I do love the African pronunciation. But anyways, guys, I guess that's it. So if no one's going to raise their hand, we're going to go through a recap. And we do have a new message. New messages explode. If we invest in the village project, would this be sufficient enough to be able to receive residency? That was part of the plan, Red. That was one thing we really wanted to do. But unfortunately, it didn't work out that way. The Moscow regional government was just not going to budge, and the bureaucracy of it was too hard. Another problem with that is that with this whole thing where, okay, so our initial plan was to do the it's like special social project status, socially significant project, was to do that, and we just couldn't get that a magic label, although some very weird things have. So maybe one day we'll get it, but as of today we don't have it. And one of the things that you have to do then, in order to, if you buy real estate in Russia, to get the special privileges, I believe the cost of the real estate is like really high, like by Russian standards, and that's why Timur hates it, because the amount of money that it costs. This is something we'd have to talk to Timur about, but I think it was something ridiculous, like 25 million rubles. Okay. So the rubles really dropped to the dollar, but still that's over $250,000 for a place to live in Russia, which is just nuts. So essentially what Timur was, he doesn't like this policy because he said essentially, he's like, to be honest, there are many regions in Russia where there's literally nothing for sale for 25 million rubles. And it's 25 million rubles of the, not the market value, but the, what's that called? There's market value. And then there's like government appraisal value, and the government appraisal value of things tends to be very low. Okay, for whatever reason, the Russian government likes to keep the what it thinks real estate costs are way lower than what the market is. We could get into a big debate as to why that is, but it is the way it is. Like, I saw something around Chekhov, which was just like, where I live, which was about the same amount of land recently. And it had like a shed on it, and I have a pretty big chunk of land around the city, and they were asking like 4 or 5 million rubles for it. But like according to the Russian government, I think everything I have altogether is 1,200,000 rubles. It's worth like nothing. So with that, the problem is that like with the American Village, we couldn't build anything expensive enough, especially if it's going to be at the government appraisal value. Like, we couldn't build anything that expensive. It would have to be essentially like a mansion. And that's part of the problem. And one of the problems of the laws in general, you always wonder who makes these laws, who makes these dumb rules. So essentially, I could talk to Timur next time I see him about this, but I'm pretty sure that was the whole thing that was really holding it back. Is there a minimum buy-in for the village? Again, Leo, have you been listening from the beginning of this? Because here's the problem, again, with this, is we have this paradox where we can't get an investor to put the money down to, like, build this whole thing until we pay off, like, the around 2 million rubles to get the rezoning and subdivision, and then a little bit of money on top of that, or around it, maybe included. I forget the math. I'd have to look it up. But it's about 2 million. Maybe we'll just say for 3 million, definitely. For 2.5 million, probably definitely. And get the transformer installed for the electricity, right? So that we could actually start construction. So the thing is, the problem is, I can't not take money from anyone to start doing anything until that hurdle is gotten over. So, I can't really price out to you a house because, let's just say this. Okay. I give you a price for a house, and it doesn't matter what it is. You somehow, be it crypto or through some other means, or the guys at Let's Russia who somehow send money, you send me the money, and you're like, Tim, I want to buy a house with you. And I go, awesome. 2 million rubles of that sum of money, which would be a fairly significant percentage of that money, not over 50%, would then go towards the rezoning and the subdivision and the transformer. And then what happens next? Then we have to lay down a bit of road, and we have to lay down some cables and wires and all this stuff for the first street. And then what happens when we go to start building your house? We don't have any money left. Because, well, we have some, but we don't have enough money left to build the nice house that we promised you. Because those, that's one of the reasons why I need an investor, is to get those sort of initial costs covered. Because if one person were to just like buy a house, right? You know, they have to cover all that BS, and then they have to sort of cover that like initial, you know, like the telephone poles. What are they? They're not telephone poles anymore. There's no telephone lines. The electricity posts, the road, you know, some other stuff. And yeah, so that's the problem. And again, it's the problem where if I would have been given access to a place where it's just a field, everything was in order, come and build, baby, maybe we could do something like that. But we still have to kind of like follow this plan that we submitted to the government and got approved. And so, yeah, unless you're really hardcore enough and you're like, Tim, so how much is the house going to cost? Plus 2 million rubles. I'll bite the bullet. Or maybe down the line, we could have someone in the community pay you back a chunk of that money later or something, right? Then yeah. But still, the whole thing with the government is going to take like a half a year for them to actually get the all the paperwork in order. You know what I mean? So, like, yeah. And here's Christopher, an alternative forming limited holding company with perhaps 5 to 10 investors, maybe 20 of those that are 100% in on the idea. Well, Christopher, I haven't been able to find one investor who's even ready to build 1/2 of the first street. So again, this is one of these things where what you're saying makes sense from the outside, but when you're on the inside, it's much different. Because obviously, this is a very expandable investment. Someone could do the whole frickin' thing. Like I said, they could do 1/2 of the first street. They could do 1/4 of the first street. If someone was just being willing to invest just to get like 4 houses built, that would be the critical mass, where after that, we'd essentially really have all that infrastructure in place, all the bureaucracy paid off, and go forward from there. And So yeah, so that's why. That's a whole huge part of it. So there is no 5 to 10 investors who are like, well, I don't want to pay for the whole thing, but I'd be happy to pay for 10%. We don't have any of those people. We've had people who are like, I really like this project. Thanks for visiting. When am I going to get my money back? 2 years ish. Ooh. 2 years. Ooh. There you go. Some other people are typing. Let's see. Does anyone want to talk? Talk, talk, talk. Oh, Alexei's listening. Hello, Alexei. I can see you're listening. So he's been very intense today. You might want to go back and listen from the beginning here. But anyways, we also have K Medwa, who we've never had before. Slav Squatch is here. He's been here. Nice to see you. But anyways, someone was writing something. A lot of people are writing something. But anyways, going back to your thing. So, or to like, you guys kind of talk amongst yourselves. If say 4 of you are ready, because one thing is it's hard to keep track of what people want, and it's really hard to keep track of who's doing what. And if there are say 4 of you out there, okay, who you all kind of started, we've all kind of become friends here on this platform, and there's 4 of you, right? And you 4 are ready to do this baby. Then all of a sudden, we could maybe again take this initial sort of government penalty fee and divide it 4 ways. And it becomes 500,000 rubles per person. And again, as the village gets built, we could sort of work out, there's going to be a maximum of X number of homes. And the cost for that initial bureaucracy is, fixed. And so those extra homes could pay the money, money to compensate you to bring down that cost from your initial paying off this government penalty fee. You know what I mean? So that's something that we could definitely do. I think those 20 million to invest $1,000 up front should be offered to be first in line to get a house, and to guarantee the money will be discounted from the. So you're talking about people who are going to be future residents to put up $1,000. Oh boy. Well, of course they'd be first in line. As soon as you put money down on something, you're first in line. But there's no way. One thing too about it would have to be 4 people. It would have to be 4 people who are going to put $5,000 down, because you guys have to also understand, if you've ever done a major project, you get into herding cats. So if we rely on 20 people to do something that's challenging, which requires now a lot of effort and struggle and strife, which is sending money to Russia, and you have 20 people, I'm 100% sure that someone is going to break their leg or their aunt is going to get sick, and they're like, well, we'll move to Russia next year. And then everything falls apart. And as long as I'm paying off a mortgage, I don't have that extra income to really dump myself. Because if I was worried that maybe a couple people might bail, I could always sort of pull $3,000 out of my butt. But, it would really have to be a sort of small, hardcore group of 3 or 4 people is a lot more realistic, I think. So hey there, Tracy. Tracy, if you're listening, click the button that Rose offered you. It says please press button to verify your registration. That way you can comment. Slav Squatch wants to talk. Hello, Squatch. What's up?
Hey, what's up, man?
Yeah.
Yeah, what you're talking about, I do a lot of work here in Philly, and it's essentially it's pretty standard. Say you buy a property. There's a lot of hood properties in Philly,
Yeah.
and some of the properties don't have a water main or a sewer or even electricity. So,
Mm-hmm.
hey, you bought the property, and it becomes your responsibility to bring the infrastructure to your property
Yeah.
at private cost. And then essentially you go and apply with the city. You say, look, I know you guys are backed up. You probably don't have time to build this for me now, according to the government, because this project's gonna take forever and the government takes forever for everything. But I offer to do this at private cost to the government. Or they usually offer some kind of subsidies or whatever if you get really involved. And essentially, you just build it on your own. the water main, the sewer, whatever you need, infrastructure, the road to your house. And what they offer us is like you get to own it for a certain amount of time. So anybody who wants to build a house nearby,
Yeah.
you have to say like, look, I built this road. It's going to cost this much, this much, this much. I got to recoup that, so that'd be in the cost of the property.
Yeah.
So that's the way we do it here, and it seems like similar over there.
Well, again, one of the big differences is that it's a lot easier in the United States to sort of put your money where your mouth is. You know what I mean? Like with something like that, someone can agree to it. You sign the contract, you send the money. Whereas with Russia, now we're in this big thing of this sending the money nightmare. Like if people, you make a good point, and I'm gonna again mute you. That's actually, you're right, and also too, that's one of the things with the investors, because remember the investors that I've talked to, one of the key things is that they're used to working with construction companies. So, like, say they would expect that some sort of like construction company or of some sort would have the resources. Like for when you're talking about construction, 2 million rubles is a pittance. It's just nothing. So that's why they're all kind of like shocked because they're used to sort of working with a certain type of entity, whereas this sort of like grassroots movement from the bottom is not really what they're used to. So yeah, I mean, if you guys are ready, if we can get maybe 4 people who are that hardcore and they're willing to put money down, one of the things is I haven't wanted to really release the price of the houses yet, although our architect basically does know pretty much what they're going to cost because there could be surprises. But essentially, if there would be like something like maybe again 4 people would want to divide it 4 ways, or 3 people to divide it 3 ways to make this burden of that 2 million rubles less, or if there's someone who just does not give an F and they're willing to put the 2 million rubles down to have the other then people buy it off and pay it off later. I mean that'd be cool, but again, it would require maybe even more money because how are we going to build the house when we have to build, like the initial posts and the road, and I don't know, building one house like that, you know what I mean? It's kind of one of those things where you're kind of like laying the infrastructure and then putting the burden of that like infrastructure and all that on one person. I don't know. But I think that's kind of up to you guys who are interested in this project. Maybe some of you feel differently. Or when you talk about houses which are in the Russian price range, which seem ridiculous. Let's just say, because I always forget, like now with the way the dollar is. So what is it? Like the houses are going to be for the love of all that's holy should be way cheaper than, let's just say, 10 million rubles. Really highball this thing at 10 million rubles. That's 100 grand in USD. And obviously that's like that is a house in the ghetto in America. So I don't know, maybe someone would be willing to do that, but I can't ask them to do it. That's would be maybe immoral. Tim, it would be helpful towards deciding on financial commitment if we had a rough guide in house prices. I'm not interested in a 20 million ruble house. I'm very interested in a 3 or 4 million ruble house. So is pretty much everyone, Mr. Martinez, and we are trying to get the prices down as low as they can be. I don't know. Maybe it's time. I'll talk to the architect, who might even be listening to this program. I'll talk to the architect soon, and I guess maybe it's time to reveal what I think is going to be the final price. But that's kind of scary because one surprise, and we're in trouble. One of the other problems too about the final price is the final price also has to sort of factor in that, in theory, someone is investing in this project, and so prices may vary. You know what I mean? So. One of the problems is the price per house might not be quite set in stone. Americans have a pioneering spirit. That's why grassroots works with us. Maybe, yeah, I can see that. Yeah. So let's see, Tim. Is a better way to look at this is to make it the government's responsibility. They make the government here do something. Ha. No, they're not gonna do anything. But they made that very clear. What they're gonna do is they're gonna bring electricity to the border of the territory, and they're gonna subdivide it. And they're gonna change the zoning laws, the zoning of that. That's it. Also, the road that's near it that goes along the property there is government roads. They have to maintain that. But other than that, they aren't gonna do anything. What's in it for the government is a new source of income. They don't think that way. They don't care. You have to welcome to Russia. Things are different. They do not think in those terms ever. Da, 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 da. All right, so guys, again, sorry I'm in kind of a dark mood. Got some bad family news from back home in America. Hopefully, I'll be able to do a post in the near future that annuls all that. But anyways, I don't see anyone who wants to talk anymore. And I don't think anyone's writing any new message. Oh, someone's writing. We'll give one last message here. Oh, it's again, Leo says, I see. So there has to be a buy-in to cover the infrastructure cost. Correct! Will the government allow people to build off-grid and then bring there really won't be any municipal services, dude. It will be electricity. And that's going to be probably it. We might be able to fight to get gas installed, but yeah. Off-grid is kind of pointless in Russia, but if you don't want to attach electricity to your house, that's up to you, man. So, anyways, one more before we go. One more question, and then we really got to get going here. So I see. So there has to be a buy-in to cover the. Wait, no. What? Didn't you just write that? What happened? I know there was a new message. There's no new message. No. Something got messed up there. So anyways, yeah. But this whole, would they let you build? Like, what do you mean, let you? Dude, this is the other thing. It's, they'll let us build. Okay. Let's go back. Sorry. Bad day. The reason that we can't build is only because the zoning for the land is farmland, and you can't build residences on farmland. On the day that the zoning would change and it gets subdivided into the little chunks, you can build whatever you want. You can build a shed, you could build a private residence, you could build a private residence where you use an outhouse and you have absolutely no electricity. You could build a residence that's hooked up to the modern electric grid and have your internet and 17 televisions and the best toilets that's ever been made in human history. Okay? The problem is related to the zoning. And until we get an investor, or until a few people, I guess, in our group come forward and sort of throw money at the problem, I can't do anything. You can't build anything, okay? So this is another thing that people are having a lot of trouble understanding, is that whereas in America, you have this whole thing where you want to build something, you have to go somewhere and get some permit or this, that. And in Russia, you don't do that. You just kind of do whatever the F you want. However, what we have to do has to be in connection with the plan, because the plan is roughly, very, 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 very roughly in connection with the plan, because the plan is the justification to change it from being farmland. You see? That's the logic. It's a very different logic. How can we get in touch with you if we're laying down the money to start the project? That would be then... hi. I just sent you a direct message. That would be direct messaging me. That's really the only way to get in touch with me. But make sure it's actually me. If you think you might be talking to one of those dirty scammers that uses this account, you could always ask me to provide you a voice message to prove that it's me. Just say, Tim, what's 2 + 4? And I'll give you a voice message that says 6, and you'll know it's me. Okay? So, something like that. Missed the live stream. Will you have a link? Yeah, I'll try to upload these tomorrow if I can. I have another trip coming up. So I'll try to get this all uploaded. But yeah, so if we could get a few people to cover these costs. Yeah, but again, one of the hard parts, guys, is I am not Mr. Super Crypto. The hard part is actually going to be having people move assets here. It's going to be hard. But anyways, when do we sign up then? 5,000 to pull money as the proof the zoning change. Well, as soon as we get 20,000, the zoning changes, and as soon as the zoning changes and they get going on that, then essentially you already have your piece of land, man. And there you go. So anyways, guys, I am going to get going. I need to make a few phone calls before I go to sleep. And anyways, you all have a wonderful evening.